The story begins in 1940 in Italy when Italy enters World War II. Here we see a 12-year-old boy named Renato. His father brings him a bicycle, and Renato, after receiving it, takes the bike to the town and begins riding it. He meets his friends, who are very happy to see his new bicycle. At that moment, one of his friends says, "She's coming?" So everyone sits down. Renato is confused about who is coming. Soon, the most beautiful woman in town, Milena, walks by. Renato is mesmerized by her beauty and becomes almost obsessed with her, unable to take his eyes off her. Renato, along with his friends, starts following Milena on his bicycle. Milena's father lives alone and works as a teacher in a school. He is deaf and does not know that his daughter is studying at the same school. Milena is married, but her husband is mostly away, as he is in the army. Milena is extremely beautiful, which makes all the men in town want to win her over. The women in town, however, are jealous of her and wish they could look like her. We then see Renato in school, where he can't stop thinking about Milena, causing him to lose focus on his studies. After school, Renato rides his bicycle to Milena's house and waits on the other side of the street for her to come out. When she does, she calls Renato over and asks him to bring her some cigarettes, giving him money for it. Renato is so captivated by her that he becomes lost in his imagination. When he snaps out of it, he realizes he's just sitting there. Later, Renato steals his father's pants and goes to a tailor to get them altered. His father scolds him for this, telling him he is still too young for such things. Even though Renato knows Milena is married, he continues to secretly watch her. He climbs a tree at night to peek through her window. He begins to follow her everywhere, even watching her dance and listen to music in her room one night. Renato is thoroughly entranced by Milena, though she remains unaware of him watching. One day, Renato buys a cassette from a music shop and listens to the same song Milena had been listening to the previous night. The next day, he follows Milena again, this time noticing that not only the rich men of the town, but even the poor and powerful men all stare at her. They eye her inappropriately, and their wives, instead of confronting them, turn their jealousy on Milena. Milena doesn't respond to any of the hateful comments and remains silent. She is loyal to her husband, who is away. Afterward, Milena visits her father regularly as he is old and needs medication, and Renato continues to follow her in with her father, and Renato continues to watch her from outside. One day, while Milena is hanging her clothes to dry, Renato sneaks and steals one of her garments. That night, he holds the garment in his hands, lost in thoughts of her. The next day, when his father finds out, he scolds Renato, and his mother beats him. Renato is locked in his room for 3 days without food, causing him to become sick. His parents call a doctor, who advises that he needs fresh air and food. Renato goes out again and sees the women of the town spreading rumors about Milena, saying she is sleeping with other men. Meanwhile, a letter arrives at Milena's father's school, accusing her of having affairs with several men. Her father is enraged and disowns her, throwing her out of the house. Milena moves into her own home. One night, while Renato is spying on her from a tree, he sees her in an affair with a town officer. He feels very hurt. Later, the officer is attacked by a dentist who also has feelings for Milena. The dentist's wife brings the police, accusing Milena of having an affair with her husband. This scandal spreads quickly across town. Milena becomes distraught, and she hires a lawyer to fight the case. The lawyer, looking to take advantage, agrees to represent her. In court, the lawyer successfully defends her by claiming that the officer is just a friend, and there was no affair with the dentist. Later, the lawyer visits Milena at her house, and she pays him a very high fee. Renato watches the whole thing from a distance and, in the process, falls from the tree, breaking his arm. Milena, now struggling for money, begins seeing the lawyer regularly as he covers her expenses. However, when the lawyer's mother finds out, she scolds him for tarnishing the family name, and he breaks up with Milena. Milena, now completely alone, is unable to find work. The pension from her husband's death also stops. One night, she cuts her hair short, thinking that if the people of the town already have bad opinions of her, she may as well become truly bad. The next day, she comes out looking completely different, and the men in town are now thrilled by her new appearance. Milena goes to a cafe, lights a cigarette, and sits down. Several men approach her, and one of them lights her cigarette. That's when she starts to reflect on her situation, thinking that when she tried to live properly, the town rejected her. Now they want to take advantage of her, so she decides to do whatever it takes to make money, even if it means turning to bad deeds. She starts a relationship with a man and goes to a hotel with him. Renato watches this from afar, feeling deeply disturbed. One day, while watching her, Renato collapses when he sees Milena with two German officers. This causes him to faint. His mother, along with the older women in the town, believes he is possessed and takes him to the priest for an exorcism. Meanwhile, Milena continues to be the subject of the town's women's jealousy and hate because of their husband's behavior. Some women, furious with Milena, break into the hotel where she's with another man. They drag her out, tear her clothes, beat her, and humiliate her by cutting her hair. The men in town do nothing to stop it. Milena, devastated, leaves the town. Renato watches helplessly. Several days later, Milena's husband, who was thought to be dead, returns to town. He had lost one arm in the war. The townspeople are shocked to see him, and he comes to search for Milena. Upon finding that many people had taken over their home, he is devastated. Milena's husband inquires about her, but no one wants to tell him what happened. Renato, knowing where Milena went, writes a letter to her husband, telling him that she still loves him and that she has gone to Messina. Milena's husband catches a train that night to search for her. 1 year later, Milena returns with her husband to the town. Now, the women of the town see that she is even more beautiful, but they also realize she is not a threat anymore because she's with her husband. The women who had previously beaten her now greet her politely. Milena, having forgotten everything, responds graciously. When she's leaving the market, some oranges fall from her bag. Renato helps her pick them up and says, "Good luck," as she leaves. Renato, riding his bicycle, reflects on how time has passed and how he has loved other girls. But in the end, Milena was the only one he couldn't forget. And the movie ends here.